My word for 2025 is all right. Hello, friends. Thank you for spending another year with me. As always, I want to give a special shout out and thank you to those who have been here since the very beginning. I started this show in 2016. And sometimes I forget exactly how long I've been doing this. It's wild. So thank you very much for anybody who has joined in recently or anybody who has been here since the very beginning. I know there's a good handful of you out there. So I appreciate you. I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate the platform. I appreciate your attention. Thank you. Those of you that have been following for a while know that I like to do sort of a year-end wrap-up episode where I reflect on the past year and set an intention for the next. And this is in lieu of doing any sort of formal New Year's resolutions. New Year's resolutions don't really tend to work out for most people. There are a few out there where it works great, but for most, it tends to be something that starts off strong, then peters out and leads to disappointment, demotivation, things like that. I don't really like to work that way. Instead, what I like to do is think of a word that will serve as sort of a focal point and a North Star for my year to come, something that I will aspire toward and open myself up to, right? When I'm trying to make a decision or when I'm reflecting on, what I should do, if I have a word and a focus that guides me, it makes those decisions easier. And it's just a great way to have an aspiration rather than something to plan for and potentially fail and all of that. So I really like doing this. I've been doing it for a few years. And, the reason I say I kind of open myself up to the word for the year is that I don't always necessarily know all the ways in which the word will apply when I decide on it. There's usually ways that it sort of reveals itself that I wasn't expecting. So going back through the years, I've had a variety of different words that I've used for my year. I forget the order of them. And at this point, I should probably go back and, keep a list. But I've done balance. I've done power, mastery, and identity. Last year, or this year, 2024, the word was connection. And these have all shaped my experience in various different ways, depending on the year. I can think back to each year and find a part of my life that persists now that was absolutely because of that focus that I had for the year. For example, in the mastery year, I really wanted to work on mastering some personal things like symptoms of anxiety and some codependence that I was going through and struggling with. And I focused on those very well during that year. And at this point in my life, those things are essentially a non-issue, at least in comparison to how they were before. Very, very different. Another interesting thing about doing this year after year is that when I'm in need of it, I can actually kind of look within myself and conjure up the feeling of those themes. Like, for example, if I'm feeling daunted or unmotivated, maybe I feel like, okay, I should go out and I should probably get a little bit of exercise, or I have this report to write, but it's so complicated, I just can't get started. I can kind of close my eyes. I can take a deep breath and remember that I can accomplish some shit. I can bring up the feeling of that year where I focused on power, right? Because there's a lot of things that I was able to find my own power through. And so I can kind of put myself there. And there are certain scenes, certain moments or songs or experiences that come up, and it helps me to draw upon that. Maybe it sounds a little bit weird, but it works for me. I have a very vivid memory of running on the trail by my house, listening to a certain song and just feeling strong, right? And I can pull upon that and just eke out a little bit more motivation to get started with something. I don't know. It works for me. So before I get into my word for 2025, let's take a look back at 2024. My word for 2024 was connection. And I'm really glad that I had this word for the year. There are some ways that it was right in line with what I had planned, and some ways in which it was different. So let's start with one thing that did not happen. I didn't really make new friends. I talked about, how I was hoping to invest in some friendships, make some more friends so that I could get together with people and just hang and do that rather than spending all my time alone or with family. It's exaggerating a little bit. I don't only spend time with family and with myself, but it was one of my goals to have more sort of casual friendships, just people I can hang with. That did not happen. And I think I realized that I don't know that that's super important to me. Don't get me wrong. Like, I have some close friends. I enjoy meeting new people. I enjoy meeting friends of friends or loved ones, being out in a social gathering. But as I thought about this, I realized I don't really care so much to have people that I don't know super well that I can just get together with for a beer or something like that. It's just not something that I have a lot of drive toward. And I don't know that there's anything wrong with that. I did definitely improve my kind of communication abilities and my ability to draw up a conversation and interact with other people, I think. As funny as it sounds, I kind of focused a bit on my ability to engage in small talk and just have interactions. So I've had some cool moments with strangers out and about in the world where I've been able to, get to know them for those moments and, share a few minutes together or an hour and enjoy that. But I guess I'm pretty content with the connections that I have right now, as well as my own company and those that are close to me in terms of, friends, family, loved ones. So yeah, I thought that was an interesting thing that I had thought might turn out one way, and it didn't exactly turn out to be the way that I expected, which is okay. On the family front, I was hoping to connect with my kids more. I've always been engaged with my kids. I've always been a pretty present dad, and I enjoy being able to do that. But I wanted to find, new ways and new sort of depths to connecting with them. And I think this was definitely a success. I just made it a point to try to, spend quality time with them, to embrace opportunities to have little adventures. It's been great. Some highlights: we've been playing a lot more board games. The kids are interested in card games. Like right now we're playing Power Hungry Pets, which I think is from the company that does Exploding Kittens. There's been a few card games we played. They're still loving a game called 5 Minute Dungeon. And we even created our own board game. We got home one day and we're like, we should make a game. And so we started riffing on it, started taking notes. I started drafting stuff up on the computer. And within, a day or two, we had kind of a pretty fully formed board game that we made together, which was just like such a cool thing. I think I can imagine them thinking back and remembering doing that. Also, just a really good proof of concept when it comes to self-efficacy and having an idea and believing that you can make something out of it, even if you've never done it before. So that was a highlight. We've also been watching more movies together, and that may sound silly, but I really enjoy watching movies. And I think there's a certain skill that comes along with watching movies when you start to get a little bit older and have the attention span for it, like understanding plots of movies and following along and things like that. And also just sitting through a movie. So we've been able to do a lot more of that. And it's just been nice because they get so excited for if we have a boys' night, if mom's gone and we have a boys' night, or recently we had a whole boys' weekend because she was off on a girls' trip. And I love that. So that was definitely an area that was successful in terms of building more connection there. Another goal of mine was to connect more with others professionally. This has been a big success, both in the clinical work realm and for the podcast. Clinically, for my private practice job, I negotiated a new position this past year that has allowed me to stay with the group practice I've been working at for years. I was considering whether I needed to make a move to, a larger organization or something like that. But I've been able to negotiate a position where I have benefits now, so health benefits, more stable, consistent income, and also I've moved into more of a leadership role. One thing that I'm realizing I enjoy and I'm actually quite good at is clinical supervision. We have a few externs from different schools that are doing experiences where they're learning about neuropsychology, doing assessment and things like that. And it's a good blend of my skills. I enjoy balancing the opportunity to teach and educate them about things, and also the mentorship aspect of it as just sort of young students, burgeoning professionals. So that's something that I've been really pleased to see that it's a good intersection between enjoyment and what I'm good at. And also, with this new position, I've been reaching out more to providers in the community, developing our network a little bit. So all of that very much in line with this idea of connection. For the podcast, one of the changes that I've implemented is a major one, which is I've been doing interviews again. If you've been listening, obviously you know this, but I was very nervous about reintroducing interviews. It had been a few years since I had done any on the podcast. And in my earlier interviews with this phase this year, I was very nervous during them. Not so much anymore. I feel like I've really, really come a long way in that regard, and I'm enjoying them. And it's just been really good. I have had the opportunity to connect with some really awesome people, from practitioners like Patrick McGrath of NoCD, or CBT legend David Burns, to popular authors like Seth Godin or Charles Duhigg. I was walking through Barnes & Noble yesterday, and I see these end caps with books on there. I'm like, oh, hey, I know that guy. Oh, hey, I talked to that person. So it's been really cool. And I have more lined up for next year. I'm going to continue trying to be picky about who I talk to and who I bring to you as guests. I get a lot of different pitches. My email is always filled with people from a given agency pitching their person as a guest. And most of those I say no to. There's a lot of people who are like, a psycho-spiritual coach with a focus on embracing your power and this and that, and cool, but not for me, not for you guys. So I really want to continue finding really good guests for you. One of the most gratifying things that has come from this is actually honing my interviewing ability. I can see my skills improving quite a bit, and I've gotten a ton of great feedback from you all. If you go check out the Seth Godin interview video, there are so many comments on there that say, I would love Seth Godin. I've been following him for years. This is one of the best interviews I've heard with him. Such good questions. So all of that, I really appreciate the feedback, and it helps me. And I see a rollover effect where working on the interviewing skills with the podcast helps with my clinical interviewing in my neuropsychology career, and also in conversing with people. So it all weaves together. And that's one of the reasons I love doing the podcast, because it's so interconnected with other things in my life and just different spheres. So thank you for the opportunity. Another thing, I was hoping in 2024 to become fluent in Spanish. And unfortunately, that did not happen. I'm not fluent in Spanish. However, I have made progress. I'm keeping it as a goal. I'm still working toward it. Toward the end of last year and the beginning of this year, I really hit the language learning pretty hard, but kind of started to fizzle out in the latter half of the year. However, the work that I put in so far has definitely allowed me to connect. For example, I've had some instances where I've been at the park or at school, and there are parents of kids at school, the school that my kids go to, that don't speak English. They only speak Spanish. And so I've been able to converse and just hang out and talk with them in a casual way, which is really cool. I also have been able to do some Spanish-speaking neuropsychological assessments with some help. So I'm going to continue working at it. It's something that I do want to accomplish in my life. Setting a year goal to finish fluency is maybe a little bit too specific, but I want to keep working at it. So all in all, I think that connection was a great word for the year, and I'm pretty content with the areas of development and progress that I've been able to attain. So that brings me to my word for 2025. My word for 2025 is mend. Mend as in to repair, to put something back together, to mend. As usual, this word sort of just came to me without a bunch of active effort. I wasn't searching for a specific word. It just sort of emerged. At first, I thought maybe my word was going to be build, but eventually I realized that mend is something that I think fits better. Sometimes it's more like the word emerges because it's a trend that's already taking place. It's already starting to happen. And that certainly is the case for this one. Like on a very practical level, I've had to fix a bunch of shit at my house this year. Things like replacing plumbing in the bathroom, fixing my garage door, fixing the front door because the whole internal thing broke. All sorts of stupid little things like that. And I hope that I don't have to do that much more home repair or car repair for that matter, because, I don't want everything to be falling apart. But of course, I welcome the skills building that comes along with it and the chance to learn and research and etc. Personally, there are also some things that I want to focus on mending, like physically. There are some health issues that I want to work on, some things that I'll need to be going to doctors and specialists for. So I really hope to achieve some solutions and get some interventions done by the end of the year. Not everything's going to be wrapped up in a year's time, but I really want to be on the right track. And I want by the end of next year to really feel some progress and feel more comfortable with these things. This is obviously going to include some active effort on my part as well, but I also need to get some help from others. And there are also some other areas in life that I won't go into detail for, but some financial things and logistics that have been put off that I feel like it's a good time to get them taken care of and just bolster everything, mend it, make it better. And then there's a few things in relation to Duff the Psych and the podcast that I want to get back in good working order. Some stuff I've talked about before, some stuff that, is behind the scenes, but I just want to focus on not trying to build a ton, but just really focus on what's here and mend it, make it even better. I keep saying better, but that's kind of what it comes down to. And that's really all I know about my focus for now. The word is mend. I will be mending. And I know that will come out in different ways. We'll see how it develops. We'll see how it presents itself throughout the year. But it feels right. So locking it in, mend is my word for 2025. And before I send you off into 2025, I also want to specifically talk about the podcast and some Duff the Psych related things. Looking back at 2024, there have definitely been some changes. I've already talked about the interviews, but I've also played with the format of the podcast a lot. I'm sure there will still be tweaks and experiments here and there, but I played around with different kinds of intros, ways of editing. A big one is video. Now all of my podcasts are on video format on YouTube. If you're watching, hello. And I definitely plan to continue that because I'm enjoying just the way that all plays out. I also left my ad network, and I talked previously about why that happened. There's an episode where I discussed that. So I'm flying solo right now, which feels good. I have less of a focus on trying to achieve this certain target number, and instead focusing more on making a product and a service and just a way of interacting with you guys that I feel proud of, that I think is helpful, that I can stand behind. So that's been a change and a good one. And that said, I will be having some ad spots in the new year. I already have a few slots lined up, but this is on an individual basis, not going through an ad agency, but having a sponsor reach out to me and working something out individually. And much like the guests, I can be more picky about them. I can be specific and not worry about always having advertisers, but instead have ones that are very relevant to you and may actually be quite helpful. So I'm happy with where that stands. This next year, I'm not going to make any promises about my bipolar book. I had hoped to have it done before the end of 2024. That's not going to be happening. But if you follow me on Instagram, you know I'm still plugging away at it. I'm almost done with the first round of edits. And then after that, I have some things I need to go back in and add to the book. Then it'll be another round of editing and formatting, and it's really going to be in its final stages then. So we'll see what happens. I still really, really like the project, and I want to get it done. But we'll see. And I think that's it. That's the end of the year episode. That's what I have for you. Going into 2025, it's no less daunting or unpredictable than it was last year. There's a lot going on in the world, and I feel like I say that every year. It's always true. So be sure to focus on taking good care of yourself and those around you. Now would be a really good time for you to focus on your values, what brings you meaning, what's been working for you in the past year, what you need to keep in mind for the year ahead. Basically, just so you can come into 2025 ready for whatever might transpire, because none of us can predict what it might look like. So thank you again for joining me on another year of the podcast. I'm not going to record anymore until the end of the year, so I will see you in 2025. Bye.